There is a conversation that almost never happens at school. It does not happen around the dinner table for most families. It is not taught in the classroom, not printed in most textbooks, and not broadcast on the evening news. And yet, it is the single most important conversation about money that exists. Not how to earn it, not where to invest it, not which app to track it with, but how to think about it. Because here's what the research keeps confirming, decade after decade. The gap between people who build lasting wealth and people who spend their entire lives chasing it is not primarily a gap in income. It is a gap in thinking. And that gap, it turns out, is far simpler to close than most people ever imagine. Picture two people. They grew up in the same neighborhood. They went to the same school. They both landed decent jobs in their late 20s, earning roughly the same salary. By the time they reach 45, one of them owns 2 properties, has investments quietly growing every month, and sleeps soundly at night, knowing that even if they lost their job tomorrow, they would be financially stable for at least 2 years. The other is still living paycheck to paycheck, has no investments, rents the same flat they moved into at 29, and feels a quiet but constant anxiety every time they check their bank balance. Same starting point, completely different destination. The question that matters is not what happened to them. The question is how they were thinking and what, specifically, was different. A study published by the Financial Planning Association found that among high net worth individuals, people who had genuinely built substantial wealth, the most consistent trait was not their level of formal education, not the industry they worked in, and not whether they had inherited money. It was a specific set of mental frameworks around money, the way they defined it, the way they related to it, the way they made decisions about it, often automatically, without even consciously thinking about it. These were not complicated frameworks. They were not the kind of things that require a finance degree to understand. They were, in fact, remarkably ordinary, which is exactly why this video exists, because these frameworks are learnable, and once you see them clearly, you cannot unsee them. In this video, we are going to walk through 5 specific ways that wealthy people think about money differently. Not 5 tips, not 5 tricks, 5 genuine shifts in perspective, the kind that quietly rewire how you make every financial decision going forward. Some of these will feel counterintuitive. A few of them might even challenge something you have believed about money your whole life. That's fine. In fact, that discomfort is a sign that something is shifting. What we're building today is not a budget, it's not a savings plan. It's something more foundational than both of those things. It is the lens through which every financial decision you will ever make becomes clearer, sharper, and more intentional. Before we dive in, here's the one thing to hold on to throughout this entire video. None of these 5 shifts require you to earn more money. None of them require a financial advisor, a high credit score, or a specific job title. They require only one thing, and it's the same thing that separates every person who has ever built real wealth from every person who wanted to but never quite got there. It requires a willingness to look at money not as something that happens to you, but as something you deliberately direct. That's the foundation, that's the lens, and everything else we're about to cover sits on top of it. Mindset Shift 1. Wealthy people do not think about money as a reward. They think about it as a tool. This sounds simple. It is simple, but the implications are enormous. Most of us grow up learning, through advertising, through culture, through the behavior of the adults around us, that money is something you earn and then spend on the life you want. It's the reward at the end of a hard week. It's what you exchange for comfort, for pleasure, for the things that signal to the world that you are doing well. And there is nothing inherently wrong with enjoying money. The problem is when spending becomes the primary relationship you have with it, because a tool that gets spent the moment it arrives never gets the chance to do anything else. It never builds, it never multiplies, it simply passes through your hands on its way to someone else's. Wealthy people have a fundamentally different relationship with money at rest. When money arrives, their first question is not what they can buy with it, their first question is what it can do for them. Can it generate more income? Can it acquire something that appreciates in value over time? Can it buy back their time in some way? Research consistently shows that wealthy individuals focus on accumulating assets that generate income or appreciate over time. including real estate, stocks, bonds, or businesses, understanding that true financial freedom comes not from a high salary, but from owning assets that work for them. A paycheck spent is a tool used once. A paycheck invested is a tool that keeps working long after you have stopped. Mindset shift 2. Wealthy people think about time differently, and this one changes everything. The average person thinks of their income in terms of hours traded for money. You work 8 hours, you receive a certain amount. You need more money, you work more hours. It's a direct, linear transaction, and it has a hard ceiling. There are only so many hours in a day and only so many years in a career. Wealthy people understand this ceiling clearly, and they deliberately build ways around it. They don't just ask how much time something costs them, they ask whether the return on that time compounds. They ask whether the thing they're building today will continue to produce value tomorrow, when they're asleep, when they're on holiday, when they are no longer working. Here's the simplest way to understand this shift. Imagine you spend 1 hour writing a report for your employer. That 1 hour produces value once. You get paid for it, the report gets used, and the transaction is complete. Now, imagine you spend that same hour building a small investment portfolio, or learning a skill that allows you to charge more for your time, or setting up an automated savings system that redirects money to work for you every month without any further effort. That 1 hour is still 1 hour, but its value doesn't stop when the hour ends. Wealthy individuals focus on creating value rather than trading time for money, looking for ways to solve problems or fulfill needs on a larger scale, building income streams that don't require their direct presence to keep running. This is not about working less, it's about working in a way where time itself becomes a multiplier rather than a limit. These first two shifts are deeply connected, and together they form the foundation that everything else in this video rests on. When you stop seeing money as a reward and start seeing it as a tool, and when you stop seeing time purely as something you sell and start seeing it as something you can multiply, your entire approach to financial decisions changes. You start asking different questions, not "can I afford this?" but "what does this cost me in time and future value?" Not "how much did I earn this month?" but "how much of what I earned is now working for me?" These are the questions that quietly, over years and decades, produce a completely different financial life, and they cost absolutely nothing to start asking. Mindset shift 3. Wealthy people are comfortable with delayed gratification, and they have made it effortless, not painful. This is perhaps the most misunderstood of all the wealthy mindset shifts, because most people hear delayed gratification and immediately picture deprivation, skipping every coffee, never buying anything nice, living like a monk while your friends enjoy life. That is not what this means. What it means is something far more practical and, frankly, far more enjoyable in the long run. Wealthy individuals grasp a fundamental truth about financial success: the ability to postpone immediate pleasures for greater future rewards. And this manifests in their daily choices, from investing in assets rather than purchasing luxuries, to reinvesting profits instead of spending them. The key word there is choices. These are deliberate decisions, not punishments. Here is how this plays out in real life. Consider two people who both receive a bonus at work. Person A immediately uses it to upgrade their car, newer, more expensive, more impressive at the office car park. The car begins depreciating the moment it leaves the dealership. Within 3 years, it is worth significantly less than what they paid, and the monthly payments have quietly increased their fixed expenses. Person B puts 2/3 of the same bonus into an index fund and uses the remaining third on something genuinely enjoyable: a trip, a dinner, an experience. 3 years later, the invested portion has grown. The car is still depreciating. The trip is a memory that cost the same but produced something different: enjoyment without the long-term financial drag. Delayed gratification does not mean deprived, it means strategic. It means choosing the reward that keeps giving over the reward that quietly costs you. Mindset shift 4. Wealthy people think in terms of ownership, not access.
This shift is one of the quietest but most powerful separators between those who build wealth and those who perpetually fund someone else's. Consider the everyday decisions most people make without a second thought: renting instead of owning where possible, subscribing instead of building, leasing instead of acquiring, paying monthly for tools, software, services, and conveniences that gradually consume an enormous portion of income without ever producing a return. None of these decisions is inherently wrong in isolation. The problem is the cumulative pattern, a financial life constructed almost entirely around accessing things without ever owning anything that appreciates or produces income. At the core of the wealthy mindset is a focus on accumulating assets that generate income or appreciate over time. This does not mean everyone needs to become a landlord or a business owner overnight. It means developing the habit of asking, with every significant financial decision, am I acquiring something here or simply renting access to a feeling? A wardrobe full of clothes bought on impulse is access to a feeling. The feeling of novelty, of self-expression, of reward. A modest investment account is ownership, something that is yours, that grows, that cannot be repossessed, and that quietly builds your future without you needing to think about it every day. Over a lifetime, the habit of prioritizing ownership over access is worth more than any single investment tip or saving strategy. Mindset Shift 5. Wealthy people think about what money costs to keep, not just to earn. This final shift is the one most people never encounter at all, yet 3 of the 4 distinct money belief patterns identified in financial psychology research were significantly correlated with income and net worth, and understanding the true cost of money is central to all 3. Most people think about earning money in terms of gross income, the number on the offer letter. Wealthy people think in terms of net outcome. What does it cost in time, in taxes, in maintenance, in opportunity cost to keep what they earn? A high salary that comes with 90-hour weeks, extreme stress, and no time to manage or invest the income it produces may generate less real wealth than a moderate salary with flexibility, lower stress, and the time and mental space to be intentional with every pound or dollar that arrives. The true cost of money is rarely just the number. It is everything attached to the way it is earned and the way it is kept. So where do you actually start? Because here's the truth about mindset. It only matters when it changes behavior. A shift in perspective that stays in your head and never reaches your decisions is just an interesting idea. It does not move the needle on your financial life. So let us talk about what each of these 5 shifts looks like as a real, practical, daily action. Not in theory, not one day, starting this week. Because none of what we have covered today is complicated. None of it requires a financial background or a large income. What it requires is the decision to approach money differently, and the discipline to make that decision again and again until it becomes automatic. For Shift 1, money as a tool, the practical action is this. Every time money arrives, before you spend a single unit of it, ask one question: what job am I giving this money? Even if the answer is small, even if the only job you can assign right now is saving $20 a month, the habit of asking the question is worth more than the amount. You are rewiring the relationship. For Shift 2, time as a multiplier, start mapping your hours. Not to feel guilty about leisure, but to identify 1 hour per week that could be redirected from consuming to building. 1 hour of learning about investing. 1 hour of automating a savings transfer. 1 hour of reading about a skill that makes your time worth more. 1 hour a week is 52 hours a year. 52 hours of intentional building compounds in ways that are genuinely difficult to predict and almost always exceed expectations. For Shift 3, delayed gratification made easy, the practical move is to create what some financial educators call a cooling-off window. Before any non-essential purchase above your personal threshold, say $50, Wait 48 hours. Not to deny yourself, but to let the impulse settle and ask whether the purchase reflects your actual values or just a momentary feeling. For Shift 4, Ownership over Access, do a simple monthly audit. List every subscription, recurring payment, and access fee you pay. For each one, ask, am I building anything here or only consuming? And for Shift 5, the true cost of money, the next time an opportunity presents itself, whether a new job, a new side venture, or a significant purchase, run the full calculation. Not just the number on the surface, the time, the energy, the tax, the opportunity cost. What does keeping this money actually require of you? Here's the thing about all 5 of these shifts. They don't ask you to be a different person. They don't ask you to be smarter, luckier, better connected, or wealthier than you already are. They ask only that you begin to see money the way the people who have built lasting wealth have always seen it, as a system to be directed, not a force to be survived. Wealth creation begins in your mind long before it appears in your bank account. That's not motivational language, that's financial psychology, and the evidence behind it is both clear and consistent. The 5 shifts in this video are not the end of the journey. They are the starting point, the foundation, the lens that makes every other financial decision you will ever make clearer, more deliberate, and more aligned with the life you're actually trying to build. If something in this video landed for you, if one of these 5 shifts made something click that's been unclear for a long time, don't let that feeling pass without acting on it. Subscribe to Wealth Lens so you don't miss what's coming next. Share this video with one person in your life who is working hard and deserving more from their money. Leave a comment below, because here's the question we genuinely want to hear your answer to. Of these 5 mindset shifts, which one do you think has been holding you back the most? And which one are you going to start applying this week? Tell us in the comments. You might just see your answer featured in an upcoming video, and you might find that writing it down is the first step towards making it real. We'll see you in the next one.